It has been a pleasure to be here together with Ingrid, the lady that, together with me, created Visdomsprenørene, and realizing that we are outside the outsiders. We are not those people who are in work, but we are not among the 8% outsiders. We are those outside 65 years of age. So we are outside outsiders. And we don't want to be included. We want to take a role. We want to add value. And Visdomsprenørene is a social entrepreneurship limited company, non-profit, in order to make this happen in Larvik City and in Norway. So, how can we make a change? How can we make a difference? Let me tell a bit about my story first. I did my first project on ageism, working with young people 50 years ago, starting in Larvik, a youth club, from start until 700 members into professional work. I finished that when I was 18 years old. I started working with women issues when 20s. I established the first integration organization in Tromsø when I was 28 years old. I started a company called Human Factors, where we have been working systematically on cross-cultural issues. And later on interdisciplinarity, how to make people work across different kind of disciplines. And of course, I'm a psychologist. So how do people work together when their minds are very different? I've been working with different kind of concepts, and the most successful concept I've been working on is called diversity icebreaker. It puts people into boxes of red, blue, and green based upon their personal preferences for interaction. This is a concept that I have been used and developed over 25 years. It has been used especially around how to make people work together across culture, across disciplines, across personalities, to succeed in groups. This kind of concept has brought me into different kind of experiences all over the world. The concept has been used by 400,000 people in 75 countries. And this experience with working with diversity came to my mind when I turned 60. And when I turned 60, I decided I want to make a change in the story about elderly people in society. And I started to go into all kinds of organizations for elderly people. Organization for history, people with hearing aids, My Heritage, Pensjonistuniversitetet, and started to elaborate what's life for people who are old. And in the year before pandemic times, I kicked off a project for 77 years old people in Larvik. I invited, together with the municipality, we invited everyone born in 1942 to be together in 3 half days with World Cafe entrepreneurship processes. And it was a fantastic experience with 30 of them, developing ideas for how to make life more valuable. And then the pandemic time comes, and all these kind of processes stopped. During the pandemic time, I started a project where I started to work with the youth school, Ra Ungdomsskole in Larvik, where we worked on sustainability issues in teams, using the diversity icebreaker, but also inviting elderly people and immigrants as resource persons. So we were combining people from the immigrants and from the elderly people together with youth. In that kind of project, I invited elderly to join. Ingrid, she showed up. She said, I want to be in that kind of project, together with the young people, working with climate issues in Larvik City. And I realized that I met a girl who had been writing a fantastic book where she talked about the beauty and the nice and the joy of being elderly. For me, being a psychologist, I've been approaching ageism with pain, death, and illness. And suddenly I had a lady who talked about the beauty, the excellence, the freedom, the joy. So what can you do when you meet such kind of women? Well, it ended up in a situation that we created Visdomspreneurs together. And we did it together with another 69-year-old lady called Anne Rieser. We have some kind of missions. We want to change the narratives about people who are old. We want to create a Larvik city inside CoLab as a hub for elderly people with entrepreneurial attitude. And we wanted to make Larvik the most attractive city for elderly people in the world. Well, in the Norway. At least better than Sandefjord. So, how can we do that kind of thing? I will share with you some of the ideas. We said that in order to change the story, we need to role model, like what we are doing now. We need to go into the newspaper and write about this kind of stuff. We have to establish Facebook and LinkedIn and present different kinds of stuff there all the time around it. We do professional presentations and take part in conferences. So what I'm doing now is part of the business game. It's part of the social entrepreneurship for me, standing in front of you, telling another kind of story, being a role model for how it can be when you are aging gradually towards 100. My ambitions is that from I was 60 until I'm dead, 100, this is 40 years, and these 40 years shall be the most excellent 40 years in Larvik. This is my dream, yeah? So, let me tell something about what are our target groups. Our target groups is, in one way, 55 plus in work-life situation, people who are gradually going out on normal work and rethink, what can I do now? How can I change career? Shall I do something differently? And then later on, some people are living in society who is not taking part in the work life, but who have half of the money in Norway in their pockets. Either to use them locally, buy a house in France, give it to the sons and daughters, or bring them into heaven. There are some other investment opportunities there, okay? If you look upon this kind of story here, this is from OECD report, talking about anti-ageism issues and other kind of discrimination issues in work-life situation. Just illustrating that if you ask people what kind of discrimination have you experienced in work life, age is the dominant, far beyond everything, okay? It's no fun being 57 in work-life situation. What we know also is from the same kind of report that elderly people are more productive than younger people. So if you're talking about people at 50 to 60 years of age, they are more productive than the younger. Organizations that has 10% more elderly people are 0.6% more productive. But if you also have young people that have a good relationship with the elderly people, and the other way, you get an interaction with 0.5% more productivity. Okay? This is interesting. This is interesting. What do we know from discrimination? This is a Swedish study. Sent out 6,000 applications. What is the possibility for me being brought into interview when I apply? At 40 years of age, it's starting to getting lower. When you are 65, there's 2% chance that you will be asked to go to interview compared to when you were 40. This is quite incredible. And one of the things that we really want to do is to try to make a change in the way employers and employees have ideas about elderly people in work-life situation. That's part of it, okay? So let's see, this is from the 55 plus onwards. Let's have a look upon Larvik City. I have been working with urban development in different parts of Norway and other places. And I have known for many years that in Larvik, we have 20% more elderly people than what is normally. We have normal frequencies, 40 to 60, and we have 20% lower members between 20 and 40, okay? And then I try to make it more precisely. This is data from 2021 in the Statistics Centralbyrå, and I'm comparing here what are the level of numbers of people in Larvik compared to what is normal in Norway. And you see that we have fewer kids in kindergarten. We have quite normal number of people at school, which implies that when I, for example, moved back to Larvik, when my son was 6 years old, I wanted them to have in a school in Larvik. And this is what happened here. When my kids finish school, they move. That was not a problem 40, 50 years ago, because there were only 10, 15% who went to further studies. Today, 60% go to study. This is what they call brain draining. The Kenyan people talk about brain draining for 20 years. Larvik, like many other cities without universities, are systematically being brain drained. We are so low, we are even lower because students with their address in Larvik, they are not counted here. And then we gradually increase the number of people. We are increasing that much that we're talking about people aged 50 to 59 and onwards. These are the numbers of net people moving into Larvik. So Larvik is a Florida city. The beauty that was described around Sandefjord, we have the same in Norway, but we have more sand. But it's the same thing. And we have the same thing on all kind of coast cities down around the coast here. People move it there because it's nice weather, well-organized urban city, good health system, well-educated people. So they are moving. So what do we do with those people that are moving? Well, this is interesting. What are we doing with them? One of the things you can try to do when they are finished ordinary work is to establish some kind of work employment possibilities that is not fitted in the normal story of working 37 hours per week in a full position. And Seniorene AS was established just a few weeks ago in Larvik, which is one out of a few companies in Norway that with lots of flexibility, but inside the regulation, make people So this organization gives a possibility for elderly people to work part-time, small jobs, but with inside a regulated market, not in the black economy market around. These is just examples of how you can make a more flexible work situation for people who have finished traditional work, but still not being finished to sit in a chair and wait for death. So let's have a story about why is it so that we are talking about being outside and being inside and outsiderness. Why do we talk about eldrebølgen? Why do we talk about that we have a huge problem in society? Who are telling this kind of story? Do we tell it in Larvik? No. Well, yes, we tell it in Larvik because we repeat the national story. The national story is so that the cost of the elderly people will take all kind of extra income the next 20 years. We will no other kind of increased economic freedom beyond what elderly people will get from folketrygden. KS, NHO, LO, the trade and labor organization, they all want money for the laborers and the employers. Half of the population doesn't belong to that kind of group. The other half of the population belong to those people who are employed. At a national level, we have an economic challenge. Locally, we don't have that. Locally, people are moving to Larvik, and they bring 5 million NOK to buy a house, and they bring 10 million in pension. Basically, every 65 age person who is in the move because they leave a workplace. They have worked for 35 years. They are well educated, culturally intelligent, cultural capital, network, and a huge pocket of money in the pocket. So what do we do with these kind of people? My dream, our dream, is that the collab shall be the place that say, come to us, sit down, what do you want? What do we want? Do you have some extra money? We need some mentors, we need some investors. We have some people here who you can partner up. There are lots of interesting possibilities when you're mixing elderly with young, as we saw from the OECD report. We want to do it inside collab, not as a club for elderly people separated from the young, but together with the young. With the new ideas, getting mentors, investors, coaches, experience, network, and bring it together. Do we have that kind of dialogue in Larvik today? No. But that's what we want to do. We want to make this brain that comes back again, or from other places, to bloom. Compensate for the brain draining, going from brain draining to brain blooming. That is our dream around it, yeah. So, at last, when we are finished working, then we can look upon how can we spend money, you know? And very many elderly people in these last 20 years, they have 4 times more travels abroad. And my friends in Larvik, they are buying flats in France, traveling to Egypt, sending Facebook messages about how beautiful it is there, etc. Does that add value in the local society? No, it doesn't do. So what we need to do, we need to ask ourselves, how can we make Larvik City a place where elderly people can spend their richness, where they find more fun to go to a bar at 12 o'clock and buy expensive wine, where they can go to concerts playing music from the 60s, where they can read Hamlet together with others, or like what the 77-year-old people said, we want to play theater ourselves. We won't be put into a bus and sent to Oslo and listen to others. We want to play it ourselves, Bjørn. So in one way, how can a city like Larvik be a place where the consumerism, what you call the silver age or golden age of elderly people, contribute to grow services, create experiences that doesn't produce a disaster for our climate. This is what we would like to see. And we say we want a Florida city, which we already are, but we want to turn it into a city with a Silicon Valley attitude. Visdompreneur, as a name, is a copy of what happened in 2015 in San Francisco, where you had the first conference on Visdomspreneurship. Elderly people coming together, using their wisdom, creating a better world, together with the rest of society. And that is our mission. Is that right, Ingrid? We'll do it, yeah? Thank you.